Now everyone is in their best behavior now that it's on the record.
There's Steve.
Wow.
Henry, if someone from the public wants to join in, is that possible, or how does that work?
Yeah, they join, but they don't join as a panelist, so you won't see them on here.
So how do they join?
They go to the website and it pops right up.
The website, Miami Parking's website?
Yeah.
Got you.
Good morning, Mr. Nordstrom.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Howdy, Roland.
Good, sir. And you?
Excellent, thank you.
Awesome. What a beautiful view in the background there. Much
Exactly.
better than mine.
Whatever. When you do this 5 or 6 times a day, you learn a little more.
Yeah.
Fancy.
I could swap out if you want.
Let's see what you got. Tom. Nice.
China, great.
I'm just doing some research.
Yeah.
Nothing going on.
Marlon and Steve, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce you to Gigi. The other board members have heard her, I have met her. So she's our new city attorney.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Nordstrom. How's it going?
Good morning.
Good, good.
How do I turn you off? There you go.
Oh, we like that beach photo.
It's fake. It's fake. As you saw, there was no one on it. So
That's how you know.
that's how you know.
You can't have nice things here.
Well, I mean, from what I heard, and I don't know because I haven't really left my house a whole lot, that South Point was a mess, but other parks were relatively okay. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've rode Sunday. I'm biking a lot now. So I rode from First to what's that? Surfside on Collins. So I got to see a lot of the beaches.
Wow.
North Beach was okay, but when I got down to South Point, just the traffic crossing the street there, the strollers. So I wasn't surprised at all Monday morning when I saw Jimmy said
Jimmy closed
shut
it.
it down. Yeah, it was pretty crowded. So.
You bike from downtown Miami to Surfside and back?
I know.
Is that what I just heard you say?
Yeah, I do it every other day. I do 20 miles. That's my beach loop, and then I have a Coral Gables loop. So I leave my house, I bike all the way to Kendall Drive off the highway. I come back up 57 and back to my house. That was like 22. That was almost 22.
Darn. Wow. That's cool.
I should be doing a lot more than that, but
A little bit at a time. Right?
yeah. I get to knock it out in about an hour and 20 minutes. So, and
Such a show off.
hey, by the way, that's nothing. Carlos Magoya can probably do that same distance in three-fourths of the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
When's Larry Jr. going to go with you?
He doesn't like to bike. He doesn't like. He's a gamer or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say. I'm a gamer.
Virtually rides the bike, right?
Oh, gosh.
No, those are my buddies that have Pelotons that think they can outbike me.
I want one of those. I actually consider that or the rower, the water rower. You know, when I was all cooped up and I was just like, maybe I should get one of these things. And then I was just like, maybe you should just go out and go for a walk and stop spending money.
Simple things.
I made the mistake of getting virtual reality goggles.
Oh wow.
Oh God.
and I just disappeared into the Matrix.
Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing for free because it's legal in Florida. I'm playing VR poker with people. I'm like just playing around. Like you get lost in there, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, "Hey, it's 1 a.m." It's like an actual casino.
I was about to say.
I'm going to tell you guys what I've done. That is, I'm saying it in a public forum, and I'm super ashamed to admit. But you know, I'm a big girl. I admit it. So I never watch reality TV at all. Like people have been calling me and like, have you watched the Tiger, show, whatever? And I'm like, no, I don't watch those things. All of a sudden, a friend of mine texted me, and she's like, you have to watch this show. It's hilarious. You're going to laugh so much. I am now deep in the rabbit hole of 90 Day Fiancé. You guys don't even know. Oh my God.
Don't even know.
No, you don't even know. It is, I am obsessed. I can't stop watching this train wreck. It is like, and every show has like 6 train wrecks, and you're just like, you're like, people can't be this gullible. It can't be. And then the next episode, it's like, oh, there's one more person flying. And this is all about Americans flying to other countries to find the love of their life, And I've just like so my kids are like, Mother, what the hell is going on with you? And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just, I'm tired of reading. I'm tired of doing other things. I just want to go into this world of, it's so crazy. So crazy.
I know exactly what you mean. Just turn off your mind.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tiger King did do that for, good, 8 episodes? I don't know. That was, but same thing. I was people can't really be like this, right? Like,
these reality shows really show you another side of people, right?
Yeah. They're just not really reality sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's 8 o'clock. Is it, should we wait a couple minutes or we get started?
Is Scott on board?
He's not, but I've got about a 10, or I don't know if he is. If he is,
Yes, Scott is here.
Okay. I've got about a 5 minutes of statement I've got to read before we get started. Just officially get started.
Just real quick before we get started, let me turn on the live stream on YouTube before you go ahead. And Cindy, as soon as the meeting's called to order, please go ahead and start the closed captioning.
Mr. Simpson, can I just hear you speak so I make sure that I can hear you clearly?
Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew.
Gonna be one of those meetings. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us.
Tom, hold on a second, please. The YouTube is still warming up here.
Warming up. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Warming up.
Okay, we're live.
Hey, thank you everyone for joining us for our first webcast of the Miami Parking Authority meeting. My name is Tom Jelke. I'm the chairman. I have a statement I have to read before we actually get going due to the circumstances of having this on streaming versus live. Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69 issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, municipalities, including public agencies, may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at a specific location, and utilizing communications media technology, such as telephonic or video conferencing, as provided by Section 120, 54, 5B2 of the Florida statutes. The members of the Miami Parking Authority appearing remotely for this meeting are Yami Reyes, Stephen Nordstrom, Marlon Hill, Larry M. Spring Jr., and me, Thomas Jelke, chairperson. In accordance with Section 233-2-33F and G of the City Code, the agenda and the material for each item on the agenda for this virtual meeting was published and made available to the members of the Miami Parking Authority and to the public at least 7 full business days in advance of the meeting. The material for each item on the agenda is available during business hours at the MPA's main office and online 24 hours a day at the website, which is www.miamiparking.com/virtual-meeting/. Any person may be heard by the MPA board through the chairperson and upon registering pursuant to the published notice for not more than 2 minutes on any proposition before the MPA board unless modified by the chairperson. Since this is a virtual meeting as authorized by the governor of the state of Florida, members of the public wishing to address the body may do so by visiting www.miamiparking.com/virtual-meeting/. To upload their video comments or to submit their written comments via the online comment form. Members of the public may also call 305-373-6789, extension 280, to provide comments via the dedicated MPA public comment voicemail. All comments submitted will be included as part of the public record for this virtual meeting and will be considered by the MPA board prior to any action taken. When addressing the MPA board, the member of the public must first state his or her name, his or her address, and what item will be spoken about. When the MPA board takes action or votes on any proposition before it, it shall do so by a roll call vote, which shall be recorded by the court reporter and included in the record. Anyone wishing to appeal any decision made by the MPA board for any matter considered at this meeting may need a verbatim record of the item. Access to the meeting. The MPA is using Zoom to hold its May 6, 2020 virtual regular MPA board meeting. Zoom is a cloud platform for video and audio conferencing, collaboration, chat, and webinars across mobile devices, desktops, telephones, and room systems. Public comment. The MPA has developed several new methods of ensuring public comment for a virtual meeting. It has established 2 new opinions. The first new option allows the public to provide public comments via the dedicated MPA public comment voicemail by calling 305-373-6789, extension 280, where the individuals will be able to leave a 2-minute message that will be played during the virtual commission meeting, the virtual MPA meeting. The second new option allows the public to submit comments via the MPA's online comment form. The comments submitted through the comment form have been distributed to the MPA board and MPA administration throughout the day so that the MPA can consider the comments prior to taking any action. For the aforementioned options, all the comments received will be included in the public record of the meeting. For these 2 new options, the MPA also created a set of instructions explaining how the public may submit their comments with either option. Those instructions were provided in the notice to the public and published online at www.miamiparking.com/virtual-meeting. These options established and provided for the virtual regular MPA board meeting comply with section 286.0114 and section 120.54 Florida statutes. The MPA has published an agenda as well as included in the notice to the public pursuant to the City of Miami Code of Ordinances and the items and topics that will be discussed at the virtual regular MPA board meetings. Moreover, section 286.0114, subsection 4C of the Florida statute specifically authorizes the MPA to prescribe procedures or forms for an individual to use in order to inform the board or commission of a desire to be heard, to indicate his or her support, opposition, or neutrality on a proposition. The MPA, through its 2 public comment options, have provided different procedures and forms to indicate, among other things, his or her support, opposition, and neutrality on the items and topics to be discussed at the virtual MPA board meeting. Thank you. Attorneys, did that go okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we proceed with the financial agenda, I wanted to put out some video call protocols for everyone. Some of them were included in the statement, but I just wanted to remind folks. So all votes have to be roll call. That means we're going to be calling for a roll call vote for anything we have to do. If you have a comment, please raise your hand and try and wave it in front of the screen so that we'll be able to call on you. We don't speak all over each other. We'll be referencing the meeting packet that's been uploaded to the MPA website. So if anyone is talking about a specific part of that packet, please remember to reference a page number. And if possible, keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking, but also remember that you're on mute if you're going to make a comment, so that, or Henry, unmute people as we need to do that. Okay. Please speak slowly and clearly and face the camera, so our court reporter can take appropriate minutes. And I've given her the right to interrupt us if something is unclear. It's really important that the minutes be very clear. So if she cannot hear us or needs to understand something that we said, I'm giving her full access to interrupt us at any time. Okay, great. Steve, let's move on to the Finance Committee.
Awesome. So let's bring the Finance Committee to order and ask our CFO, Scott Simpson. And Scott, if you would screen share your documents with us, we'd appreciate that.
I'm not sure how to do that, and I think we had some issues, but if you need documents, I can email them to you.
I can put them on the screen if you like.
Okay.
Give me a moment.
While you're doing that, I'd like to go ahead and ask for a point of privilege and take an item out of order. Item 4 is the personal appearance by RSM. RSM is the external auditing firm to perform an annual audit. I'd like to take that agenda item first, if it's okay with the board.
Is there a motion to move that item out of order?
I move.
I will second.
Unmute yourself, Tom.
Yeah. So Steve, for that, just go ahead and do a roll call vote. Thanks.
Okay. Mr. Jelke.
Aye.
Ms. Reyes.
Aye.
Ring.
Aye.
Mr. Hill. Motion passes unanimously. So please proceed, Scott.
Henry, could you please bring the ex-owner auditors into the meeting? When Henry does bring him in, you'll have Bob Feldman, who is the engagement partner, as well as Neil Harris, who is the manager for the engagement.
Is there anything in the package, Scott, that you want Henry to bring to the screen share that they'll be referring to?
Well, I'm not sure if they're going to start with the required communication or the CAFR. Both of these items are included in the package. The required communication letter is on page 25 of the agenda package, and the CAFR is on page 41. Additionally, the CAFR is also published on the MPA website, as well as 4 additional years of financial information for the authority.
So, Mr. Feldman, are there documents you'd like to refer to?
I'm guessing they're on mute because I saw them come into the screen.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. It's a little, need a little louder, please.
How's that?
That's very good, sir.
Okay, excellent. So let's get started, I guess. What we're going to do is we're going to cover the financial statements first, and then we'll do required communications after that. But I guess, Scott, any introductory comments, or should we just get started?
Bob, I've already introduced you and Anil, and if we could have the document referred to page 41 of the document, which is the first page of the CAFR. With that, Bob, it's all yours.
Yeah, well, good morning again. It's great to be joining you, even if it's virtually. I wish we could be actually doing this together, but hopefully we'll be able to be together soon. So with me today is Anil Harris. Anil works very closely with me, has been serving the Parking Authority for a number of years now. I'm Bob Feldman. I actually am the office managing partner of our Miami office as well. I also am the national industry leader for government and not-for-profit practice. So it's great to be joining you. What we'd like to do is we thought we'd start off by giving you a little bit of a high-level overview of the audit itself. And then what we'll do is we'll cover the required communications. As we're going through this, don't hesitate if you have a question, to interrupt and ask. And of course, we'll leave time at the very end in case there's any questions as well. So with that, unless anyone has any questions, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Anil.
I've got one thing,
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt, is that the screen share is someone's email.
Yes.
So let's, whatever's happening with the screen share, let's get it to the right place. Perfect. Thank you.
There we go.
Great.
All
Can
good.
you guys hear me?
Anil, are you there?
We hear you, but very, very low. If you can
Okay.
speak up, that would be great.
Is this better?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not. 1 second.
Mr. Feldman, since we can hear you well, can you do it?
Well, what we'll do is let's cover required communications first. We'll go in reverse order to see in the meantime that Anil can straighten out in terms of his audio issues. So what we'd like to do is to turn to page 25. The required communication is on page 25 of the board packet you've received. So we can turn to that.
I'm sorry, is this page 25 of the board packet or page 25 of the CAFR?
Page 25 of the board packet, 25 of 216.
Okay.
Perfectly. So actually, this is the beginning of our required communications. Standard thing that we're required to do. So as a board, you can discharge your oversight responsibility. So what we'd like to do is we'll turn to page 28. We will actually walk through this. So, basically, we talk about our responsibilities with regards to the audit. That's obviously outlined in our arrangement letter that we give to the parking authority. We talk about, you see the third item on there, we talk about accounting policies and practices. The important thing to note there is obviously, management has that ultimate responsibility, for your policies, practices, the financial statements as a whole. The authority did not adopt, any significant new accounting policies. There haven't been any changes during the current year whatsoever. The following item we talk about is significant or unusual transactions. Again, good news there. We didn't identify any significant or unusual transactions or any significant accounting policies in emerging areas that we need to bring to your attention as well. From a management judgment and accounting estimate, the information we're going to be going through at the very end of this, there are estimates that are included in the audit process, and we'll just briefly cover what those are and how we got comfortable with those. Audit adjustments. So audit adjustments, great news again, no audit adjustments were made to the trial balance that was provided to us, nor did we have any uncorrected misstatements that we identified. I will tell you that this is very unusual because in many clients that you work on audits, you typically have some audits that some accounting entries that are required, audit adjustments that are required. So it is honor, a tribute to the finance staff in terms of the great job they did that we didn't have any audit adjustments or uncorrected misstatements whatsoever. So we can turn to the following page. All right, so now we just talk about, disagreements with management as well. Fortunately, again, we didn't encounter any disagreements with management, over the application of any significant accounting policies. In terms of consultation with other accountants, we weren't aware of any consultations management had with the accountants about any accounting or auditing matters. Good news, again, no significant issues, that came up during the audit process, or no significant difficulties that we have. I will tell you, that's changing in the environment we are now with COVID-19 and having to evaluate, what the impact of COVID-19 has been on the organizations we're auditing, whether they be governmental, not-for-profit, doesn't make a difference. It's having effect on, all the clients, and it's a little bit different world we live in right now. But this audit was completed pre-COVID-19, so, no significant issues, no significant difficulties whatsoever. In terms of internal control matters, again, great news there. No significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses in any of your internal controls. So that's great as well. So if we flip to the next page. All right, so this is, just some of the different significant accounting estimates that we encountered during the course of the audit. And you can see there, depreciation on capital assets is the first item on there. So what we do is, again, we evaluate management's process in terms of how they estimate what they have, on the books. We've audited the underlying data that management has provided. Again, great news. We concluded that management's estimate is related to capital assets, and depreciation specifically is very reasonable. Allowance for doubtful accounts on your trade and other receivables that you have. We make sure that, those are being recorded at what we call realizable value, what you can expect to collect. So you have an accounting policy in terms of how you evaluate that. What we did is we looked at the methodology used to come up with your estimate, evaluated it, and again concluded that there was no problem whatsoever. Your estimate is extremely reasonable. So if we'll turn to the following page. And the last two items are accounting for post-employment benefits and for your net pension liability. Obviously management, has developed what these estimates are with input from your actuaries. And those are obviously developed with certain assumptions that your actuaries have provided. What we come in and we do is we test the underlying data that's provided to the actuaries. We take a look at the assumptions in terms of that have been made and evaluate overall whether or not they were reasonable, again, as it relates to both your liability for post-employment benefits, your liability for your net pension liability. They were very reasonable. We had no issues whatsoever. So if there are any questions, the following 3 or 4 pages is just management's representation letter that it provides to us at the end of the audit process. It's required to be included in the accounting package here. So unless are there any questions at all before we move on? Okay, I guess there being now, let's check in. I guess Anil, are you there? And is your audio audible?
Hello, can you guys hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah, I called in, worked better that way. So I guess going over the financials, starting on the board package, it would be page 41 is where the financial statement starts. The first page I want to bring you to is page 59, and that is our audit opinion, and really the only document or page within the document that is prepared by the auditors. And we issued an unmodified opinion, and really what that means is a clean opinion, really the highest level of assurance any auditor can provide to a client. So there's nothing in the opinion to bring to your attention. It's a clean opinion. The next page is 61 through 66 is the MD&A. It provides a brief overview of the authority and why items change from one year to the next. But I'll go over some of those changes beginning on page 70, which is the operating statement for the authority or the income statement. So looking at so here you have 2 years, 2019 and 18. The first item is the operating revenue, which shows compared to last year, $13.7 million increase. The majority of that, which is $12.1 million, is due to the on-street parking revenues, and the increase relates to the rate increase for parking that was effective January of 2019. The second item that caused the increase was the authority hired new parking or boosted up or additional parking enforcement officers, which also contributed to the revenues related to on-street parking. If you go down next to operating expenses, you can see again there was a $2.2 million increase. As previously mentioned, $1.6 million really relates to increased salaries and wages related to increase in enforcement officers, as well as general increase in payroll for all employees. Moving down, other significant changes is in the non-operating revenues and expenses section. Excess revenue distributions to the city was $6.2 million, increase from last year. So the current year amount is $14 million. And then moving down, the authority had a $9.4 million increase, and that's after the distributions to the city. So basically what that means is that your revenues exceeded your expenditures by $9.4 million for the year, and the authority ended the year with a $39 million net position. And as you can see in the 2018 column, the net position at the prior year was $29.6 million. Moving on to page 75, in addition to our audit on the financials, we also do an audit on the pension plans. And page 75 shows the activity, or again, the income statement for the pension plan for the year. Just looking at the bottom line number, which is the increase in net position, that was close to $1 million, $957,000, again, meaning that the contributions and investment earnings exceeded the distributions by close to $1 million. And the authority ended, the pension plan ended the year with a $21.1 million increase in net, or $29.1 million net position balance. Also included on page 106 is, as you know, the authority had a debt refunding subsequent to year end. That's not included in the financial statements. However, there's a footnote that highlights that. Just wanted to bring that to your attention. But with that, I'll open up to questions. Those are really the highlights for the operating activity for the year.
Any board members have any questions for Mr. House or Mr. Feldman? Thank you very much, gentlemen. Anything else you'd like to share, Mr. Feldman?
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, thank you all for allowing us to join you today. I mean, overall wise, your financial picture is extremely strong. I mean, and they'll talk about, your financial position, your net position increasing by 10 million. Your revenues are up significantly. You did a good job of keeping your expenses in check. So everything is extremely positive in terms of the financial picture and financial health of the organization. I referred earlier to COVID-19. Obviously, you're working your way through that. It is having an impact, I know, on a number of organizations. If there are any assistance for whether anything you're dealing with as it relates to COVID-19, our firm has a internet site that actually has lots of information on COVID-19 that's extremely, extremely helpful. We're happy to talk with you about anything as well. So just let us know if there's anything we can do to help. And just finally, I just wanted to thank, Scott and his team is, again, they did a tremendous job. They really make our life very, very easy. It's really a pleasure and it's an honor to serve the Parking Authority. So that's all I had, and we appreciate allowing us to be with you today.
Awesome.
Mr. Chair.
Hey, Scott, quick question. Prior to the COVID, did the increase in revenue from the increase in enforcement cover more than just the expenses for that enforcement?
I'd like to answer that after I go into the monthly financials and talk about where we've been.
Okay, cool. Proceed.
Right. But I'd like to before we get off the phone, I'd like to thank RSM and the team. In addition to the 2 audits that they mentioned here, they also do an agreed upon procedure for the Marlins, and they also do an agreed upon procedure engagement for the Knight Center. Again, I'd like to thank them. This was an interesting year, just for the fact that we were in transition and trying to implement ERP while this was going on. And lastly, all the congratulations and praise really need to go to Margie. This was her show. She runs the audit. I'm only there, as a support team to the other people. But again, I sincerely appreciate everything that Margie did, and unfortunately, she doesn't get enough praise and the light, except when Mr. Notion brings her out a couple times a year. I'm not encouraging you to bring her out more, but I do want to express my appreciation and for her work in making the audio seamless.
Steve, I think Marlon had a question.
Mr. Hill.
Yeah, Bob, I just wanted to ask you, what kind of internal discussions are you having with Scott and Margie and the team with regards to the impact of COVID-19, given the fact that our financials are in a great position? Do you have any top line concerns or things that we should be doing to preserve that strength? Could you just give us some insights on that?
There hasn't been any formal conversations. Obviously, we talk to Scott on a regular basis, but based on what we're seeing, I mean, we have absolutely no concerns, as it relates to COVID-19. As I said earlier, I mean, the organization is, I think, in a very, very strong financial position, and there's nothing that immediately comes to mind. And Anil, I don't know if you have anything else you'd want to chime in on that.
No, I mean, similar to what you said. I mean, obviously, having the rate increase and when everything opens back up, hopefully the revenues will normalize with the increase and the normalization, that your revenues should, shoot back up. But, looking at the net position at year end, at least as of 9/30, you're in a good position. And, once the economy opens back up, more traffic and everyone starts moving around, that the revenues will normalize. That's what we would think or expect.
Spring.
I wanted to save this for later, but one of the things relative to this conversation I want to recommend to the board under finance was that we do convene a task force similar to that of the city of Miami. They put together an excellent framework that obviously you guys know I've been working on myself. And I wanted to suggest the same thing for the board. I've had a number of conversations with Scott and with Alex about trends that I'm seeing and timing of phasing back into normal life. And I think we would serve, our constituents and the city well, because as you know, we contribute quite a bit of revenue, and that revenue does need to be protected because they're counting on it. So on the city.
Mr. Chair, what does that look like?
Mr. Spring, would you put that in the form of a motion that the chairman appoint a small task force?
I would, so moved as stated, with the caveat, I'd like to volunteer myself to lead if you also choose.
And is there a second to that?
I'll second that for discussion.
Second, and discussion?
Director Spring, if you could just walk us through, what does that look like to you? What do you envision? And what does the end result look like to you as well? If you could give us some insights as to what are you thinking?
So what I'm thinking is we would set up a kind of a structural framework. So instead of us waiting a month to have some dialogue or at least some communication about where revenues are going, we can do that on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. The other thing is to really start to analyze some of the medical data that's coming and saying, okay, what are the policy decisions that are being made by both our county mayor, our city mayor, with regards to business activity, also being able to tie into their initiatives. They're looking at making very strong strides at individuals and small businesses, as well as the tourism industry. And they have an advisory council of business people from around the county that is providing them with other feedback. So I want us to kind of integrate into that process, leverage what they're doing with regards to what we're, our plan on park, because we have one revenue source and it's parking, and
Ernie?
either people are coming in or not. I saw the attorney wanted to say something.
Yes, before the board takes action, we will need to open up public comment. If the committee is going to make this motion and act on it, we should have public comment.
Okay.
Excellent. Mr. Hill?
I was just going to ask, do we have, Alex, are you on the city's task force, or any staff members attending the city's task force meetings? And
No, we are not on the task force, but, and I'm sure that Scott was going to mention it, we have regular conversations with the city's budget director, and also from the DREAM department, because they manage the leases for the city, and who are, like the Marlins, we have tenants there. And so we have regular conversations with them about where we are and where they are, just on a weekly basis. I don't know, Scott, if you wanted to add to that. And then, through Larry, we have been speaking with him as well, because he does have a lot of insight as to the city as well.
Scott?
So initially when this hit in mid-March, we immediately reached out to the city to have open communications. And what that consists of is every other week, on the even week, we'll meet with the DREAM team, their asset management team, and we'll talk about trends, things that they're seeing, what they're doing. Obviously, the property at Marlins Stadium, we are the landlord, but the city owns it and receives the direct financial benefit. So obviously, before we can do anything, we need their direction. And so part of the conversation is, what do they see? What are they working on? What type of communications they're sending out to the tenants? What are they receiving back from tenants in regards to abatements, deferrals, those type of things? So, we continually look to address that. If it's an abatement, that's one thing. If it's deferral, what's their thinking at 6 months, 12 months, and how they're going to do it. And then, obviously that involves legal issues. If you have a tenant who only has 6 months left on their lease, you cannot give them a 12-month deferral. So that's what we have with them. And then the other week we meet with Chris Rose, who's the city's budget director. The conversation sort of talks about, all right, have we looked at all access points for state, federal grants, any type of money that can be used directly to replace revenue or reduce expenses that we've incurred that we can take. To this point, we have not identified anything that directly would impact us that we could keep. We also additionally talk about models. What are we doing on revenue projections? What are we doing on expense projections? One of the things that we have been doing constantly since mid-March is reaching out to local parking authorities, regional parking authorities, as well as national parking authorities to see if their experience is the same as ours, what their expectations are, what they're doing, those type of things. So, that's an ongoing issue. We've also, it started out with a vendor outreach program when this initially came out. Some of our vendors have been very, very cooperative and offered the form of expense reduction, abatement. Some of them have even left the window open to saying, at the end of June, if this is still not better, come back, talk to us, and we'll work with you. Again, we're constantly doing that. We've also reached out to the insurance brokers, reviewing all our existing policies to see if any of those, could come back and help us at this time. I mean, obviously, the one thing that we were most cautious about was staffing. We constantly talk to the city as well as the manager about the intent for staffing. We do not want it to impact the workforce from a financial perspective if it's physically prudent and politically prudent. So we continually assess that. We've not taken anything off the table, whether it's, at some point, if this continues beyond a certain threshold, to talk about workforce reductions, those type of things. But one of the things that we did do immediately is we did go to a skeletal workforce, minimal existence, where we had a slight presence of enforcement officers on the street. We immediately stopped enforcing this type of thing. We've subsequently brought everybody back, and what we're doing when having them come back is, if there's work, you come in, you do your work, and as soon as your work is done, you may leave. What we don't want is things to get backlogged, to be in a hurry to try to do month end, cause mistakes. Throughout this whole process, we've continually paid our vendors. We've made a concerted effort for the small vendors. If their invoice says net 30, we scratch it out and we're paying it immediately, because we want that cash to be put back into the community so that they can do other things to help their payroll, those type of things immediately. From a compliance standpoint, we haven't missed a beat. We remitted all our sales tax surcharge. We've made our monthly escrow payments to the trustees for the bonds. So when we do bring staff back, it is strategic. We try to minimize, direct contact. We try to stagger, this person who's in one corner and have a person who complements it that works in the other corner come in. So we're cognizant of that. Even before we brought things back, Alex and the operations team was sitting down talking about logistics. How do we do something as simple as just passing out the keys and the canisters in the morning? So they implemented procedures as far as social distancing, with PPE and everything in place. So when we did bring everybody back on the 29th, we were ready to go. But we're still constantly maintaining this, monitoring, and we do still have these conversations. One of the last things that we want to do is start pulling back the workforce. A heavy preponderance of the enforcement team is part-time. They are our largest cost center and our largest concentration of people. But with saying that, it takes anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks to get them hired, on board, trained, and to the point where they're self-sufficient and they're producing for us. So, the problem is if you start rolling back, you take the chance that they might not come back, and all the capital of dollars and time that you invested in them potentially could go away. We did see an immediate correlation with the number of enforcement officers on the street and how it impacted the revenue. But again, we haven't taken anything off the table. So I think the key is, we have communication with the city, all our vested parties. One thing that was interesting is that right after this happened, Fitch sent out a generic letter basically asking a list of about 20 questions, everything from what was your revenue, how was your revenue impacted, what's your liquidity, do you continue to plan to make debt payments, rent payments, those type of things. So what ended up happening is they ended up taking out all that data and aggregating it by credit. And by credit, I mean aggregating the parking industry, local government, counties, special districts, that type of thing. They took the aggregated data to committee, and they made a general review of the credits and issued the report. The report came back for specifically the parking authority, where they reaffirmed our credit, they reaffirmed our outlook, but there were a few entities that received downgrades on their outlook. Currently, we're a single A with a stable outlook. But again, the report at the end did have that caveat. They will continue to look at it. They'll continue to monitor it as this issue continues to go month after month. But in summary, what they were saying is that most parking authorities tend to be adequately, from a liquidity standpoint, have adequate liquidity. They tend not to be heavily leveraged, so they were comfortable making that general overview. Obviously, when we get into the financials, you'll see that March did have an impact, because what happened is mid-March, when the initial information was released on the news, there was a big drop in on-street activity. Then the following Monday, when there was additional news, it almost fell off the face of the planet. Revenue was decimated from that standpoint. But we were so far along in the month of March that we were able to salvage March. So the results for March were positive.
Hey,
But what we've seen,
Scott, let's save those comments for the financial statements. I want to move along. Dr. Jelke, comments on the motion, please.
So I guess the question I have, Larry, is, and maybe it's a legal question, is if more than one board member wants to be a part of this, then how do you do this with Sunshine? Like, I don't see how that would
You
work.
publish them, you publish the meetings. Publish your agenda and you publish the meetings. So it can be done.
So if for a task force, I guess what the purpose of the task force would be, what exactly?
Well, I want to look at, the same way the city and the county are looking at this. They're not just looking at cutting costs and trying to weather the storm. They're actually looking at what are the proactive things and actions that they can take in order to, A, stimulate the economy and support the overall turning back on of the business engine here in the region. We're a big part of that, right? Because, let's take our big revenue areas, Wynwood and downtown. We go back into right now I know we turn the spigot off. We can decide to turn the spigot back on today and put the full enforcement group out there and they start giving tickets and all that stuff, but there's impact to that, right? Both politically and actual. The other thing is some of these businesses are starting to get themselves back open. They're bringing their staffs back. They're sanitizing their establishments and they're getting ready for a phase 1 or a phase 2 right now, right? The worst thing we could probably do is start ticketing their employees who are in those environments right now. It may be, we have an agreement, hey, we reduce the rates for a couple of hours or, come up with some of those ideas, but being able to assess that in the context of the data that the city is generating, that the county is generating. Scott brought up a point about, and he and I had this conversation, well, what are the other sources of dollars? I'm connected in DC and I'm getting updates from my guys on Capitol Hill once a week. There's a bill being pushed through right now that would focus on infrastructure. They also have a segment, they understand cities and government instrumentalities are hurting. And the last thing, thankfully, our Congress wants to do is see those government employees get laid off right now. So they're putting together a bill that will help kind of soften the loss of revenue. Just want to have a task force, and it couldn't be some of us, some outside members, where we're focused on those high level things and staying connected to that as we go through the process.
Hey, Larry, if you were in a discussion in your role as a consultant to the city, and the issue came up that the city needs to maximize revenue at this time, and on that list to do that was the parking authority, would that cause you to be in a conflict?
Well, my role there is not to determine their pathway. I'm there to add comment. So it's not like I'm saying, I'm not hired to say, my recommendation is X. The city staff is doing all this stuff. I sit back, I listen, and I say, oh, don't forget about this, don't forget about that. So it's a much softer role than I think people realize. But, it was funny, I went back and looked at my recovery plan from 2008 to get myself prepared. And on the list was monetize the parking authority.
Of course.
So, but remember, keeping in mind, we are a city asset, right? Obviously, we don't want to have that, and they don't want to have that. They're more focused on the viability of the revenues right now, long term. That's what they're looking at. So, and again, this is not an issue. I'm a volunteer here, right? On this side. I'm here to make sure that the entire ship sails on past this situation. And, that's why I'm suggesting that we at least we're connected to it. Because right now, I know Alex and Scott are having those conversations every day, but we're still kind of sitting there. And we as board members aren't necessarily knowing what's going on. You may know what's happening in the world of real estate because that's going to be an issue in a year. But small business, what's happening in that field, and we support the small business. What's happening at the hospital? We manage the parking at the hospital. What are they doing? because they're having revenue shortfalls. Just trying to stay connected with all of those things outside of what the staff does on a day-to-day basis, at least for a short period of time. This is not.
Ms. Reyes, comments on the motion?
While I agree that there should be some kind of oversight on what we do as we move back to doing business as usual, I'm not sure that I understand the task force. I just think that Larry could work with staff and then be that task force. I'm not sure that we need to create another committee, but I defer to the board. I mean, that's just my opinion. A task force means that we would have to go and get volunteers, I guess, from the community and notice these meetings. And I think these things just kind of take time. And, you know, I know that all of us talk directly to Alex and Scott and the team. So if Larry is already tuned into what's going on at the city and the county, which I know that he is, why not just be a task force of one and just sort of meet with the staff and then report back to us, and then, you know, let us know what the what they're coming up with, and then you know, we can vote on it, agree to it if it is necessary to vote. I think that Larry, Margarita, Alex, and Scott could be that task force, and I don't know that we need more people in it. I am not a big believer of big groups because I think that in the end, a lot of things don't get done. So that's, you know, that's my 2 cents, but I will obviously defer to, you know, the board and see what we all agree on. Thank you for asking.
Yes, Dr. Jelke, any further comments?
So I agree with Yami. I think Larry's already connected, and rather than us take up another action item that creates bureaucracy and let him be nimble and do what he does, I do agree with one thing, and maybe we can, for those that want it or need it, maybe we can have more one-on-ones more frequently, to maybe go to by month, like 2 a month, until the pandemic's over. But I feel comfortable letting Larry and Alex and Margarita and Scott be the task force and not have to really formalize anything at this point.
Final comments, Mr. Hill?
Yeah, I agree with that approach. And maybe then we could amend the motion. Can we, as a board, designate a board member to be the liaison with staff to achieve this this purpose, this mission?
Does the maker of the motion agree to that amendment?
I do.
Yes, Madam Attorney.
We do need to open a public comment if there's going to be one.
Yes, ma'am. I intend to do that. All right. So the motion has been amended, Dr. Jelke.
This, I guess, is for the attorney. Do we need a motion to do what we just said, or can we just?
To designate, if you're going to designate, if there's going to be a vote by the board, which is, it looks like this is where we're moving towards. If we're going to vote to designate anyone or create a task force, there does need to be public comment.
Right, but I guess what I'm asking is, if Larry is going to meet with Alex, and then do we actually need to formalize that in the motion, or can he just do that? And otherwise just take the motion off the table and not need public comment and not need to move forward?
That would probably be the best recommendation at this moment, unless we want to open a public comment, which is to remove the motion and allow for it to be organic.
So, Mr. Hill, would you consider removing your amendment to the motion? Unmute yourself, Mr. Hill.
Sorry about that. I don't know about the organic. I think we need to have it on the record. I mean, there's so much happening as it relates to this whole reopening task force process. I think it's important for us to kind of document what we're doing and to show that we are giving specific direction to bring back policies that we are going to make decisions on. So.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table before we go to public comments to ask Mr. Spring to be the liaison between us and the city to discuss items that may affect both the city and the Miami Parking Authority. So Henry, how do we open comments by the public?
The comment methods have been open, it's standing open, so anybody could use the same methods that have been open for the last week or so.
Dr. Jelke?
I think Steve, what I was prepped for was just pause 2 minutes, say if anyone has any comments, you have a couple of minutes to either call in or email in, and then we ask Henry if anything's come in. If not, we move forward.
Cool, so we'll do that. We'll leave the discussion open for a couple of minutes, Madam Attorney, if that's okay, for there to be any public comments by email or by phone. And Henry, you'll let us know if anything is received, please.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
While we're waiting on public comment, I presume that Mr. Spring would be open to this designation.
I guess so.
Something else to do for free.
Hey, anything to get my city back on track. You know, this stuff is hard for me. You know, kids can't go outside like they normally do, and I'm sure all the parents on here. I'm teaching class. Actually, I have class later today with my daughter.
Awesome.
Maybe Tom, I need to call you for some educational tips because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But if we can get this thing back moving in the right direction, get back to some level of normalcy, I'll do it for free all day.
If it matters to anyone, the jobs report, just the preliminary jobs report that's all issued the day before by ADP just came out, showing April potential loss of 20 million jobs. And the actual report comes out on Friday, as everyone knows.
20.2. I just got it too.
Thank you, sir. Any feedback for us, Mr. Henry?
None so far.
Just one more minute. Thank you all for your patience.
Yes, ma'am.
Henry, this is where we're supposed to have some music.
I did not consider that. I'll make sure to to have some prepared for the next meeting.
You need to have an MPA soundtrack or something.
No, it's got to be the what is it, the Jeopardy song?
Oh.
Negative.
Madam Attorney, you good?
Perfect. We waited 2 minutes. When it appears there was no comment.
All right, awesome. So we'll take a vote. All in favor of the motion to appoint Mr. Spring as our liaison with the city. We'll do a roll call vote, please. And that will be Mr. Hill. Aye. Dr. Jelke.
Aye.
Ms. Reyes. Unmute, Ms. Reyes.
Sorry, I stepped out for a minute.
That would be an aye, is that correct?
Aye.
I vote aye, and I'm assuming that Mr. Spring is going to set himself aside and not vote. So recusing himself for obvious reasons, if that's appropriate, Madam Attorney, since Mr. Spring is a part of the motion. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Mr. Scott Simpson, please continue with our financial reports.
So, since we'd already started talking about where we were and where we are, let's sort of finish up with that, and then we can go over the numbers for March. again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I just want to reiterate that the authority has always been forward thinking. You know, several years ago, we started with pension reform, pension reductions. Obviously, if you look at our pension plan, you know, it's well funded. It is not a burden as a percentage of the overall budget to payroll. You know, we continue to do the right things to assure minimal impact to the bottom line, as well as ensuring that the pensionees' money will be there when they need it. We also were forward thinking and looking and trying to reduce costs as it relates to health care. So this is something that we didn't wait. We've been working on this from day one, you know, with the vendor outreach, with communications to the city, communications to the manager, reaching out to our peers at IPMI, those type of the picture that we see between now and September, and the reason we're only looking in September is that that's the fiscal period that we're currently in. We are now in the process of trying to figure out how to budget and forecast for 2021, which the plan is hopefully to be able to present a proposed budget for the next operating year at the July meeting to you. Initial indications again show April being dismal. The on-street revenue came in at approximately $250,000 compared to the $2.5 to $3 million we normally receive. So April's going to be ugly. Again, but we will roll out all the things that we talked about, whether they be expenditure cuts that we've implemented or expense abatements that have been granted to us by our vendors. We continue to look at staffing, security, maintenance, all those things, and we've immediately rolled those out, to make sure that we do what's safe for the public, what's physically prudent for us, as well as the city, as well as our bondholders. But our projection is, we'll continue to see, a decline, and probably not come back in full by September. Again, when they open the marinas, the park, the golf courses, that's great for the public. It stimulates additional dollars, but unfortunately, those dollars do not correlate to parking directly for us. Our revenues come from on-street traffic, from people visiting entertainment sites, restaurants, clubs, venues, as well as the employees that go to work and park their car 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. So, we'll continue to look at our forecast. I think even with the latest forecast that we projected, we'll still be able to have a positive bottom line. Obviously, that will impact the excess contribution to the city. Again, that's one of the things that we talk to the city constantly about, what their expectation is of what they're going to get. At the last City of Miami Commission meeting, Chris Rose made a presentation using a data set of points as of March. And in that, he had reduced our expected contribution for the current fiscal year from approximately $17 million and change to $12 million. And the thought was that each succeeding month after May, that revenues continued to be impacted by this, they would pull off $2.5 million or $2 million and change for each subsequent month, to the point where they get to September, where the expectation would be zero from the parking authority. So, sorry, did somebody say something? Okay, so
let me just ask a question. In looking at 2021, would it be appropriate, which we've never done before, to do a sensitivity analysis budget where you do best, worst, most probable in terms of assumptions, so that we could look at a document like that?
For discussion, yes, we can do something like that.
Okay.
But when we go to appropriate the dollars, we have to have a finite number, for ratification.
I understand, but I'm talking in July, if that's your target to come to us with a 2020 draft, if we could look at that type of sensitivity analysis, I think it would help us make some more prudent decisions, perhaps.
And again, I'm happy to do it, and to the point where we start to get data and things sort of try to normalize, that we'll be happy to try to provide that at the July meeting. So yes.
Okay. Why don't you proceed with the finance statements, Scott?
All right. So the report in the package for the month of March, it starts on page 10 of 216 in the agenda package. Just a few housekeeping items. As we alluded earlier, we are starting the preparation for budget for fiscal 2021. The bank reconciliations are current. There are no material items in the current month's reconciliation from prior month. We talked about that. So to get into the body of the report, let's just jump right to it. It would be page 13.
Does Henry have these to put on screen share?
He does. All this is included in the agenda package. So if Henry goes to page 13 of 216.
Give me a moment, please.
Yes, sir.
And again, this document is also on the MPA website for access at any point. You can advance 3 more. There we go. So what we have is the detailed income statement for March. March is the midpoint, or 50% of the fiscal year. You can see that we had approximately $3 million of operating revenue, or about $2.6 million below budget. Again, it was sort of across the board, but On Street was the largest driver at almost $2 million of this variance. We've seen a similar variance in the run that we have for numbers for April. On the expense side, we had a couple items that exceeded budget. These items were contemplated prior to March. Revenues were running very strong, so they had already been put in place. On repairs and maintenance, the variance is attributable to system-wide repairs, whether it's related to elevators, grounds and maintenance. There was also some expenses related to the 40-year certification for one of our properties. Revenue sharing is favorable for the month. Unfortunately, that is a consequence of having a direct relationship to revenue or net income at participating entities, where we have to rebate a portion back of the gross revenue or income back to the owner of the property. Professional fees, other, is over budget by about $10,000. I'm sorry, $67,000. I was looking at the wrong line item. And this is primarily driven related to expenses that we've incurred with ERP. We're at a point where ERP is stabilized, but as we've moved along, we've had to make some adjustments, some changes, those type of things. And we've been conservative in the accounting for that. We've treated all these as period expenses and just expense them as incurred. And then bank charges. Bank charges is probably for the second time in NPA history is favorable, unfortunately, by about $219,000. Again, it has a direct correlation to the number of credit card swipes that we see in system-wide. So for March, with that, because we were so far along in the month when everything started to happen, we still ended up with about $1.1 million to the bottom line. You will not see that in April, will not see it in May, and probably won't see it the balance of the fiscal year. With that, are there any questions about the numbers for March?
Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Scott.
All right, seeing no questions, we'll move on to the same statement for the Knight Center, which is on page 18 of 216. These numbers have been sent to the city. We have reviewed and talked to them about it. On the month, Knight Center had approximately $204,000 of operating revenue, or about $17,000 below budget. Again, what you expect, their transient activity fell off at the midpoint of the month, and then that following Monday, they saw a similar decrease as the parking authority. They had operating expenses of approximately $162,000, leaving surplus operations for the month of approximately $41,000 on the month. With that, are there any questions about this report or the preceding report?
Any other questions? Go ahead, Scott.
All right, that concludes my presentation for the month.
All right, any other questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Any further questions for the auditors?
The chair, quick question for Scott. Scott, you said April, it's going to get ugly. What does the face of ugly look like? Can you?
As I already alluded to, the on-street pay-by-phone parking revenue came in at approximately $250,000 compared to the $2.5 million to $3.5 million that we normally see in a month. So you can just extrapolate from that.
Are we going to, and this may be a question for Alex as well. I know we typically provide information to the city. Are we going to kind of magnify that and maybe have a little bit more frequent communication as to what the face of ugly looks like?
All right, Scott.
As I alluded to earlier, we weekly speak to the city, and that conversation again starts out identifying potential revenue replacement, talking about staffing, talking about models, projections, forecasts, and then the last thing we talk about on a weekly basis is the expectation of the excess contribution. We go in excruciating detail because what we want is we want the city to know exactly where we are, want ourselves to know what the city is expecting, and the last thing is I don't want any kind of surprise to the board, and lastly, I don't want a surprise to my bondholders. Obviously, if I saw something that down the road we saw as a potential that could impede the ability to repay our bonds, we would have to take different actions.
This is where our reopen designee Spring comes into play, right, Mr. Spring?
That would indeed be the case. So more daily, weekly focus on the matter. So
stay tuned. All right, any other questions for the finance portion of the meeting? If not, we'll close that and I'll hand it over to Dr. Jelke for the main agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Scott. Gigi, I have a question for you. In my notes, it says that we should, at this point, have an open comment and see if, I don't think anything has come in. Is that right, Henry? We haven't had any emails at this point.
No, nothing's come in.
So do we still need to open it up for 2 minutes and see if there's any open comment before we actually?
Before we take these approvals, I do recommend opening the floor. We don't have to wait the 2 whole minutes. We could just open the floor, ask if any attendees do want to comment. And if not, we close and we can move forward.
Okay, so we'll open the floor for any public comments at this time. If anyone that's either on the webinar or wants to call in to the number, which is 305-373-6789, extension 280. Operators are standing by to take your order and your comments. We'll wait a couple of seconds before closing public comments, just in case.
Sunny side up, please. Side of it.
Sorry?
Sunny side up, please. Side of bacon.
Sunny side up, side of bacon. Fair enough.
Henry, are there any comments? Any attendees wanting to speak?
No.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Then we will close the public comment forum. Any comments that come in, Gigi, is it okay if we pick them up at the next meeting, or if we have something come in between now and the end of this meeting, we need to address them?
If something comes in at the end of this meeting, we'll open it up towards the end, even if action has already been taken. But if I may, Chair, for the record and through the chair.
Yes, please.
I would like to state that although there have been no public comments prior and currently for this meeting as of May 5th, I would state that pursuant to the notice published April 27, 2020 in a newspaper of general circulation in the city of Miami for this May 6th meeting, public comment options through online form submission and telephone recordings and current live comments were made available to the public starting April 27, 2020 and up until last night and currently for today's meeting. To comment on any of the agenda items for today's meeting prior to the board's taking any action, any comments given would have been given prior to for your review. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to start with the regular agenda, which is on page 143 of the packet. We have approval items. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the March 2020 financial statements.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Nordstrom, seconded by Marlon. I think we need to get it on the record. So if you could say it.
Sorry about that, Madam Clerk Julia. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. We got to do a roll call vote. So Steve.
Yes.
Marlon.
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Yami.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So that motion passes. I'd like to entertain the same for the board meeting minutes for March 4th.
I move.
Moved by
Second.
Yami and seconded by Marlon. Did you get those,
Yes.
Julia? Okay, great. Let's do it again. Steve?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Marlon?
Yes.
Yami?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that motion passes. Item number 3 is my reappointment. Is there a motion to reappoint Dr. Jelke to the board?
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
Moved by Steve and seconded by Larry. I cannot vote, but I will entertain the vote. So Steve,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Marlon,
Yes.
and Yami.
Yes.
Okay, and I abstain. So that is a 4-0 vote for the approval. And item number 4 is ski data maintenance agreement.
This agreement is the ski data maintenance agreement, which includes the extended warranty, including parts and maintenance for 10 years. This has already been approved by the JMH management. The 10-year total comes out to $1,675,412.
Okay, is there a motion to put this on the floor for discussion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Great. Moved by Steve, seconded by Larry. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Marlon?
Yes.
Yami?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. The motion passes. That's all for approval items. Alex, let's move to your report, please.
Sure. So I wanted to bring you up to speed. I've spoken to you during our board briefings on the 2 projects that are still ongoing. It's the one thing that really hasn't stopped during this pandemic, which has been construction. First off is Regatta Harbor. We are about 6 weeks from completing the project. We are working with the city and the lessee of the adjacent property to get the work done that we need to get the CO. We've had a little, some back and forth with them, and I'm hoping that this week we made a little bit of headway, and we're waiting to hear back before the end of the week so that we can go ahead and we have to go into their property to do some of the work. So hopefully we'll get that squared away before the end of the week. We're also working on pouring the slab and enclosing the first floor, which we have to do as part of our agreement, and then tying up some loose ends with the contractor. So we are getting close to the end, and hopefully in the next meeting, I'll be able to tell you, what the final date is and bring any changes that we need to bring to the board to close out the project. And for Grand Station, they poured the 24th floor already. The windows have been installed up to 11th floor. I think when you guys come back to our board meeting, you'll see how fast that project has moved from the last time you saw it. They are still ahead by 1 month, despite the reduction of hours that the construction is facing because they were working 24 hours, but they've had to scale back. And so the roof is expected to be poured by mid-June. So they're still a month ahead of that. And one item that I wanted to talk to you about just quickly, and I think next month I'll have much more to report, is that I've spoken to you, but I wanted to let you know that we are working, we've been working very diligently with the HR department to phase our employees back in. And so that includes, you know, having the offices ready for them, and making sure that there's a plan in place to clean the offices and the vehicles before we have a full staff back here, and also providing them with masks and gloves and protective equipment that they would need to feel safe at our workplace. And we are working with Margarita. Margarita has been a true soldier through this process, in coming up with and thinking alongside us with how we're going to roll out a Welcome Back Miami campaign, like you alluded to, Larry. We need to open up, and I think we need to make this transition as best as we can for our customers. So we are coming up with a campaign that we will share more information with you when we finalize the details of the program. As you may have heard, MVP, we're going into hurricane season as well. So we rolled out that program. There's a lot that we want to get out to the community regarding that. And also pay by phone, which is touch free. It's a good time to push pay by phone. And we are seeing an increase of usage of pay by phone already in the county marinas, where we also have equipment, but we have seen a shift of usage to pay by phone rather than having people going to pay at the machines. And the resident discounts. So what we're going to do is have a good communication. We're going to be visiting the offices, the net offices, and dropping off this information so that they could reach out to the community and make sure that they have, you know, all this information available to them, that they could come to our website, that they can call us, and we can provide them with all this information, especially for the residents. Yes, Tom?
Alex, this is probably early. I'm just thinking down the road, and this is probably for the task force too, but given how things are going to change in the future, perhaps at some point we revisit Virginia Key, and having that be a pay by phone location for the city. I know that we tried and we switched back because they weren't I guess they couldn't fathom how to make that change, but I think this is an example of lots of other places where the touchless system is going to really be needed. Yeah. And that's probably one of the conversations we need to be starting to think through is we're fortunate enough to be in a place where we have the platform, right? To make this adjustment seamless. It's just a matter of now getting infiltration into all the areas that we need it in a way that doesn't overburden the customer, right? Like, I'm not saying let's just go out and figure out how to make all the revenue we can off the people, but making something touchless is going to make sense for a lot of people right now.
Absolutely.
Is that at the historic beach site or the other?
The other side.
It's the north side. Okay.
We tried when we did do some managing there. We proffered for us to put pay by phone there, and we did it for a while. But they felt they weren't generating as much revenue as they would have just collecting at cash at the entrance. So, you know, we no longer manage Virginia Key. We are managing the marinas, some other marina sites for them. So we kept Curtis Park and Antonio Maceo for them, and that's doing well. But yes, absolutely, Tom, even with our facilities, you know, that we were going to do the touchless, and we had started testing the touchless at Marlins Park for the season. So that's something that we're also thinking about what happens in our facilities as well. So we are also taking this time to think future-wise, how does that look for us in our own facilities, and how we can help better serve the city for those types of things that we're going to have to now, you know, pivot to. And that's it for my report. Margarita, I know you guys got her report. I put it in the packet, but I wanted to take the moment to really thank during this time. You all have been very instrumental to me. I'm glad I've been able to have this conversation. Yes, Mr. Nostrum. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I had a quick question for you because you just spurred something. If you're on pay by phone, you can't use pay by phone and get into one of our garages?
Not yet,
That's interesting.
but we're working on that. And I think they are too. I think that technology is going to start taking what may have been, scheduled for 18 months, maybe, a lot closer than what we think. But yes, we have had those conversations as well. So thank you all. Thank you, Margarita, and staff that has been great throughout this time, I have to say. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say or any questions for me.
Any other questions for Alex?
How's your family doing, Alex?
I'm sorry?
How's your family doing?
Oh, they're doing well. I think I had mentioned Mr. Nostrum when I spoke to him that, I really have enjoyed the time I've had with them. And I think I've worked harder than I have this is, and staff will feel the same. We're working hard. But when I get to go home, since they don't have the hustle and bustle of every day, have a lot of think time, that time to think things through, implement things, with proper thought, and spend time with them has been invaluable for me. I think that everything will pick up soon. I'm beginning to hear the rumblings of baseball, and people are antsy to get out. But I do think that this time with them for me has been precious, and I'm hoping everybody else has had some time to slow down a little bit, because it really has changed my perspective on things.
Yeah.
Alex, I really would, if it's possible, and open the opportunity through the city attorney for us to do something social online with the rest of the staff as we would for normal celebrations and traditions. I think we could consider doing something like that, something that's not business, just to celebrate being alive, having a job, being part of the process to reopen. I don't know if you've considered anything like that.
I hadn't thought about it, but I will definitely, that'd be something great to put together. I have to say the staff has been very receptive. I do try to send out, as much as I send you all a weekly email, I do send an email out to staff, just letting them know that we're here. Any changes, any things that we have thought or done throughout the week. And I have gotten great feedback from them. They're very grateful that they are, still receiving a paycheck, and that, that we have been very good to them. So I have to tell you that they have been grateful, and they have, written to me and to staff to thank us.
And let's look into that. We can even look into see whether or not there are any nonprofit efforts happening within the city that we could partner with, and
let them know. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and work with Margarita and see just kind of support us getting back to some normal from a charitable standpoint.
Sure.
Great. Alex, I just wanted to commend you. I mean, you stepped into this role and immediately got thrown into this mess. You and Scott and all the executive team. Just want to say, at least from someone who's on several boards, you're handling this very professionally and with grace, and you guys are thinking ahead in a manner that's comprehensive. So we really, I think I can only speak for myself, but I think everyone has a similar sentiment, is that you guys are handling this really well, and I'm proud to be on the board with the staff that's thinking this way. Hopefully we'll be out of this soon, but I'm glad that we're preparing as if we're not. So that's a great thing. I need to check in with Henry real quick to make sure that have we gotten any other comments?
Thank you,
No,
Chair.
no, nothing else has come in.
Yeah, I think we think we're more popular than we actually are, which is okay. I don't mind. Gigi, is there anything else we need to do?
No, I was just gonna say, thank you actually did that. Thank you, first and foremost, to the chair, Henry, Alex, Roland, you all, and Julia. You have actually made this possible. We fully complied with every statute. We've made it very accessible, and this board is very efficient. This was really well run, and I want to thank you all for being patient and continuing to do the work and serving even in these hard times. But I wanted to let it be known that there's a lot of work behind scenes to ensure complying with all the statutes in this new 21st century, I guess, venue. Hopefully, you're right, we will be in person soon, but thank you. And if we do receive any comments even after the meeting, I would ask Henry to bring that up in the next meeting if this happens.
Great. Julia, did you get everything? We're good?
Yes, thank you all.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Yes, I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Steve,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Marlon,
Yes.
Yami,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Thank you, everybody.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank
Be safe.
So very
Good.
much.
you as well.